Emily never expected her life to fall apart so quickly. One moment she was planning a future with Daniel, and the next she was standing alone, wondering how everything she believed in had turned into nothing. Daniel had once looked at her like she was his whole world. They talked about marriage, a small house, maybe 2 kids someday. Their life was simple, but she thought it was enough for both of them. Things changed the day he met Victoria Hayes. Emily noticed it slowly at first. Daniel coming home later, dressing nicer, talking about bigger dreams. He started acting like their life together was too small for him, like she wasn't enough. He told her she didn't aim high, that she should want more. But Emily knew what he meant. He wanted more money, more status, more of everything she didn't have. When he finally told her he was leaving, he said it like he was making the smartest decision of his life. He told her Victoria understood him better. He said he deserved someone who wanted to grow with him, not someone who held him back. Emily stood there quietly, letting his words cut through her. But she refused to give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. She packed a small bag, left their apartment, and didn't look back. What Daniel never knew was that Emily had grown up very differently than he thought. She wasn't poor, not really. She had chosen a simple life, away from the money, away from the pressure that came with her family name. Victoria Hayes wasn't just a wealthy widow, she was Emily's mother. Emily had stepped away years ago because the world around Victoria was full of greed and manipulation, things she didn't want to be part of. She built a quiet life for herself, working hard and staying far from that world. When Emily called her mother after Daniel left, she didn't call for money or help. She just needed someone to hear her voice and remind her she wasn't worthless. Victoria listened, guilt filling her heart, but she didn't push. She simply told Emily she had a place to stay if she wanted it. Emily agreed, not because of comfort, but because she needed space to breathe again. As she lay in her childhood room that night, Emily let the tears come. Daniel had never loved her. He had loved the version of her he thought he could shape. He walked away because he thought she had nothing. He believed he was trading up, choosing a life of luxury over a life built on love. Emily didn't say a word about who she truly was. She didn't tell him he had just left the daughter of the woman he thought would change his life. She let him go with his assumptions, his pride, and his hunger for wealth. Because one day the truth would find him. And when it did, it wouldn't be Emily who broke him. He would break himself. Emily arrived at her mother's estate quietly, hoping no one would notice. The long driveway, the tall oak trees, the soft lights glowing from the windows, it all felt familiar yet distant. She hadn't lived there in years, not since the argument that pushed her away. She chose a simple life back then, far from the influence and expectations that came with Victoria Hayes' name. Now she was returning, not because she wanted wealth, but because she needed a safe place to breathe after everything that happened. Victoria opened the door before Emily even reached it. Her mother pulled her into a gentle hug, not asking questions, not demanding explanations. Emily felt her chest tighten. She had always been strong, always tried to take care of herself. But right then she let herself lean into the comfort she had avoided for so long. Victoria guided her inside and made her tea like she used to when Emily was younger. They sat at the kitchen table, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The hurt from the past and the new pain Emily carried said enough. When Emily finally shared what Daniel had done, she kept her voice steady. She wasn't looking for sympathy. She just needed to let the words out, to let her mother know she hadn't returned because of money or desperation. Victoria listened with sad eyes, wishing she could erase the years that separated them. She blamed herself for everything. If she had handled their old family troubles differently, maybe Emily wouldn't have felt the need to run from that life. But Emily didn't want guilt from her mother. She simply wanted understanding. Victoria reached across the table and held her daughter's hand. She told Emily she didn't deserve any of the pain she had just gone through, and that she should never feel ashamed for loving someone who didn't value her. She offered her the guest room, telling her she could stay as long as she needed, no strings attached. Emily agreed, but only under one condition. Her identity had to stay completely private. She didn't want Daniel finding out who she really was. She didn't want him thinking she came running back to wealth, or that she needed anyone to rescue her. She needed time to stand on her own feet again, without him twisting the narrative. Victoria understood, even though it hurt her to hide her daughter. She promised she would say nothing to anyone, not even to the staff who already whispered questions about the young woman moving into the estate. Emily felt a small relief knowing her mother respected her choice. That night, As Emily settled into the quiet room overlooking the garden, she knew she wasn't running away from her pain. She was giving herself space to rebuild. The truth about her life, her past, and her identity would stay hidden for now, protected, just like her heart. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to rest. Daniel adjusted to life at Victoria Hayes Mansion far too easily, almost like he had been waiting for this chance his entire life. He walked around as if the place already belonged to him, greeting the staff with a fake confidence and touching expensive things he knew he could never afford on his own. Victoria watched quietly, already noticing the shift in his personality, but she kept her thoughts to herself. He bragged openly to others about how lucky he was to find a woman with real value. He told people Victoria understood him in ways Emily never did. He acted like he had stepped into the life he deserved, even though he hadn't earned a single part of it. Whenever he was around Victoria, he pretended to be polite, thoughtful, even responsible. But when she wasn't in the room, a different side of him came out, lazy, demanding, and shameless. Daniel began suggesting changes around the mansion, talking about how things could be more efficient or more modern. He claimed he was only trying to help, but everyone could see his true intentions. He wanted control. He wanted access. He wanted to be seen as someone important, even though he had nothing to offer. He told the staff dramatic stories about his past with Emily. He said she had no ambition, no class, no real future. He rolled his eyes when he talked about her, calling her a sweet girl with nothing to give. He described himself as a man who had outgrown her, someone who needed a partner who matched his drive. The staff listened politely, but they didn't miss the bitterness in his voice. Victoria, who had asked them not to share Emily's identity, heard many of these stories through them. Every word made her stomach turn. She wanted to confront him, to reveal who Emily truly was. But Emily had asked for privacy, and Victoria was determined to respect that. So she stayed silent, watching him dig himself deeper with every lie he told. Daniel believed he had fooled everyone. He believed Victoria was falling in love with him, that her wealth would eventually become part of his life. He walked through the mansion as if he already owned the floors under his feet. He didn't notice the looks from the staff or the way Victoria's patience was thinning. He was too wrapped up in the fantasy he created, one where he was finally the man he had always pretended to be. But beneath that smooth surface, the truth was still there. Daniel had traded real love for a world he didn't belong to. He had abandoned a woman who never needed wealth to prove her worth. And now he was bragging about it in the home of the very person he believed was lifting him up. Victoria said nothing, but she remembered every lie he told. And she knew that sooner or later, those lies would collapse on their own. Emily woke up each morning with a new kind of purpose. For the first time in a long time, her life was not shaped around someone else's needs or expectations. She began to focus on the things she had once put aside, starting with her education. She had paused her degree years earlier because Daniel said they needed to save money and build their life first. Now she realized she had only been building his life, not her own. So she enrolled again, choosing classes that challenged her and allowed her to grow. She paid for everything herself by taking a part-time job in town. Victoria offered more than once to cover her expenses, but Emily refused gently every time. She wanted her progress to belong to her alone. She didn't want Daniel's betrayal to push her back into a world she had stepped away from. She wanted to prove she could rebuild without leaning on anyone's wealth, not even her mother's. At school, she met people who saw her as she was, not as someone's partner or someone's daughter. She formed friendships that didn't demand anything from her. These new friends valued her thoughts, her kindness, and her quiet strength. Slowly, Emily began to trust herself again. She spoke more in class, joined study groups, and found joy in small wins like passing difficult exams or helping classmates understand something she had mastered. Victoria watched all of this from a respectful distance. She never pushed, never hovered, but she made sure Emily had a calm home to return to each night. Watching her daughter regain her confidence filled her with a pride she hadn't felt in years. Emily wasn't just surviving, she was growing into someone even stronger than before. The pain Daniel caused didn't define her, it motivated her. Emily spent evenings reading on the balcony or taking quiet walks through the estate garden. She thought about Daniel sometimes, not out of longing, but because betrayal doesn't disappear overnight. It leaves a shadow that takes time to fade. She wondered why she had given so much of herself to someone who valued so little. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want to hurt him. She only wished she had seen the truth sooner. Still, the wound he left reminded her of one thing. She would never allow someone to dim her light again. Each day brought small steps forward. A finished assignment, a shared laugh with a new friend, a peaceful dinner with her mother. These moments shaped her more than any heartbreak ever could. She wasn't the same woman Daniel walked away from. She was stronger now, more grounded, and no longer afraid of building a life that fit her, even if it didn't impress anyone else. The only part of her past that remained unsettled was Daniel himself. His betrayal still lingered in the background, unfinished, waiting for a moment when truth would finally catch up to both of them. Emily didn't know when that moment would come, but she knew it would. Daniel's polished charm didn't last long. At first, he tried to impress everyone with sweet words and polite manners, but the act faded as soon as he felt comfortable inside the mansion. Victoria noticed the change almost immediately. Daniel began waking up late, skipping responsibilities, and treating the staff like they were beneath him. He acted like the estate was his personal playground, not a home he had been invited into. Soon, he shifted from acting entitled to making bold suggestions about Victoria's finances. He casually mentioned that he had good instincts about investments and could help her expand her wealth. He spoke as if he had a right to be involved, even though he had no business experience. When Victoria ignored him, he tried again the next week, asking if she wanted him to review her accounts. Each time she declined, he grew a little colder. He stopped hiding his frustration. He started acting distant, sulking when Victoria didn't give him the attention he wanted. He hinted that he felt unappreciated. He said he had given up so much to be with her, and that she should at least consider trusting him with something meaningful. Victoria listened quietly, knowing exactly what he wanted: access to her money. His words weren't about love. They were about control. But Victoria wasn't foolish. She had lived long enough to recognize greed when she saw it. She noticed the way Daniel's eyes lingered on her jewelry, how he asked questions about her late husband's properties, how he wandered into restricted areas of the house pretending he was just curious. Every new behavior made her more certain of his intentions. Still, she didn't confront him. Not yet. She chose instead to observe, keeping her reactions calm while she slowly pulled back privileges. Invitations to events stopped. Household decisions were handled without him. She involved him less and less, watching how he responded. Daniel didn't handle it well. He became manipulative, saying she was pushing him away, claiming she was treating him unfairly. He tried to guilt her with emotional lines, insisting he had left his old life behind for her. Victoria didn't argue. She simply acknowledged his words and moved on. She had no intention of letting him anywhere near her finances. His desperation only confirmed what she already knew. Daniel wasn't there because he loved her. He was there because he loved what she could give him. He didn't notice her silence had purpose. He didn't notice she was paying attention to every selfish request, every careless comment, every excuse he made to avoid contributing to the household. He certainly didn't notice how carefully she was setting boundaries around him. Daniel believed he was winning, that he was close to securing the life he always wanted. Victoria knew he was digging his own grave. She had a plan forming, quiet but firm, and she would wait for the right moment to set everything in motion. Daniel had no idea that his own greed was guiding him straight into it. The night of the dinner party arrived with soft music, warm lights, and guests dressed in elegant evening clothes. Victoria had invited only the people closest to her: old friends, trusted partners, and a few longtime neighbors. Everyone knew it was a special night, though Victoria didn't reveal why. Emily prepared quietly, choosing a simple but graceful dress, something that made her feel strong without drawing too much attention. She wasn't there to impress anyone. She was only there because her mother asked her to be. When Emily entered the dining room, a few guests recognized her from years ago and greeted her warmly. Others saw her for the first time and complimented her calm presence. She carried herself with confidence that had taken months to rebuild. She sat down near the center of the table, 2 seats away from Daniel, who hadn't looked her direction long enough to notice anything familiar. He was too busy trying to charm guests he believed were important. Daniel had dressed in a new suit Victoria bought him, and he acted as though the whole night revolved around him. He bragged about business ideas he didn't have, connections he didn't own, and a future he believed he deserved. He especially enjoyed talking about his past, twisting his story to make himself look like a man who climbed his way out of difficulty. It didn't take long for him to bring up Emily. With a smug smile, He told the table how he had once dated a sweet but poor girl who didn't have the drive to keep up with him. He said he felt sorry for her, but knew she wasn't meant for the life he wanted. Then he added that some people just don't rise higher, as if he were proud of moving on. The room fell uncomfortably silent. A few guests glanced at Victoria, unsure if they should laugh or change the subject. Others looked at Emily, their faces tightening with sympathy. Daniel never stopped talking long enough to notice the tension. He didn't recognize the woman sitting so close to him, the woman he was openly embarrassing. Emily kept her posture steady. Her expression didn't break, but her eyes held a quiet storm. She wasn't angry. She was simply remembering the girl she once was and how deeply his words used to cut. Victoria watched everything from across the table. Her expression stayed calm, but her heart tightened. She saw her daughter facing the man who hurt her with more grace than he ever deserved. She saw Daniel proudly digging himself deeper, blind to the truth sitting right beside him. Victoria didn't say a word. She let him talk, let him expose himself, let every guest hear exactly who he really was. Because tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And Daniel had no idea how close it was to finding him. When dinner ended, Victoria stood up and gently tapped her glass, asking everyone to follow her into the main hall. The guests gathered with curiosity, whispering softly as they moved beneath the tall ceilings and golden lights. Emily stayed close to the back, unsure of what her mother planned to say, but trusting her completely. Daniel lingered near the front, smiling like he expected Victoria to make an announcement that would somehow involve him. Victoria waited until the room fell silent. Her calm voice carried easily through the space as she thanked everyone for coming. She talked briefly about the importance of family, about second chances, and about the people who make life meaningful. Guests nodded, listening closely. Daniel stood straighter, thinking she was about to praise him for being supportive or loyal. Then Victoria turned toward Emily. She reached out her hand, inviting her daughter to step forward. Emily walked slowly, her heart beating steadily but not anxiously. This was her truth, not something she had to hide anymore. Victoria placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and looked at the room with pride. She announced that Emily Hart was her only daughter, her child, her trusted companion, and the legal heir to the entire Hayes estate. The reaction was instant. Gasps, stunned expressions, and shocked whispers filled the hall. Some guests already knew, but most had no idea. They had seen Emily as a graceful young woman at dinner, not as someone connected to the wealth and power behind Victoria's name. Daniel didn't move. His smile faded the moment Emily's name left Victoria's lips. Then his eyes widened, his body stiffened, and every color drained from his face. He stared at Emily like he was seeing her for the first time in his life. But she hadn't changed. Only his understanding of who she was had. He remembered every cruel word he said about her at the table. He remembered how he dismissed her as poor, how he bragged about leaving her behind, how he claimed she held him back. Now he stood there realizing he hadn't walked away from nothing. He had walked away from everything. Emily met his gaze. She didn't glare, didn't smirk, didn't try to hurt him. Her eyes were calm, steady, almost peaceful. She didn't need to shout or prove anything. The truth already did all the work. She simply held her ground while Daniel struggled to find his footing. Victoria continued speaking, describing Emily's strength, her independence, and her kindness. Not once did she mention Daniel, and that silence cut deeper than any insult. He wasn't even important enough to address. Daniel finally took a step back, bumping into the wall behind him. His chest tightened with panic as the reality settled in. The woman he mocked now stood beside the very fortune he chased. And he had thrown her away without a second thought. The room applauded for Emily, soft at first, then stronger. She didn't look at anyone else. She kept her eyes on Daniel for one last moment, giving him nothing but the truth reflected back at him. He didn't just lose her. He lost the future he thought he deserved. And Emily didn't have to lift a finger. The moment Victoria finished her announcement and the guests began drifting away, Daniel rushed through the hall, desperately trying to catch up to Emily. He didn't care who saw him or how foolish he looked. His perfect image had already shattered, and all he could think about was fixing what he had destroyed. Emily walked calmly toward the garden doors, wanting some air, but she heard his hurried footsteps behind her. "Emily, wait," he called out, breathless. She stopped, not because she wanted to hear him, but because she refused to run from someone who no longer had power over her. She turned slowly, meeting his panicked eyes with calm control. Daniel stepped closer, his voice trembling as he tried to smile. I didn't know. You should have told me. Everything would have been different if I knew who you were. Emily kept her expression steady. She didn't say anything yet, letting him continue. I was confused, he said quickly. I didn't mean the things I said at dinner. I was just upset. I didn't understand your potential. I didn't see the whole picture back then. He tried reaching for her hand, but she stepped back, making his face fall even more. It was Victoria, he insisted suddenly. She tricked me. She made me believe you were gone. She manipulated everything. I didn't know you were her daughter. I didn't know you'd become this. Emily finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. Daniel, nothing you're saying is true. You didn't leave because you were confused. You left because you thought you found someone richer. Someone you believed was better. He opened his mouth to protest, but she shook her head lightly, stopping him. You told me I wasn't ambitious enough, she said. You told people I was poor, that I held you back. You said I wasn't meant to rise. Those weren't accidents. That was who you were with me. Daniel swallowed hard, his excuses collapsing. You're twisting things, he insisted weakly. I just needed direction. I made mistakes, okay? But we loved each other. We can fix this. You can't just walk away. Emily looked at him steadily, her voice calm. I did love you, but you didn't love me. You loved the idea of a life you could climb into. And now you're here because you see money, not because you see me. He flinched like her words hit him physically. I'm sorry, he whispered, though his eyes betrayed fear, not remorse. Just give me a chance. You and I, we could still, work. Emily took a slow breath. Daniel, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry for what you lost. With that, she turned away. No anger. No shouting. Just quiet, final truth. Emily, please, he cried, but she kept walking, her steps steady and sure. For the first time, Daniel realized something painful. He couldn't manipulate her anymore. He couldn't guilt her. He couldn't charm her. He had no power left. Emily didn't destroy him. She simply walked away. And that destroyed him more than anything ever could. Victoria waited until the last guest had left before calling her attorney and longtime advisor into her study. She didn't raise her voice or show anger. She didn't need to. Everything Daniel had done in the past weeks had already spoken loudly for him. Every attempt to peek into her accounts, every hint he dropped about wanting financial control, every conversation she overheard through staff. She had documented it all quietly, patiently. She knew Daniel would try to twist the truth if confronted directly, so she made sure everything was handled professionally. Her attorney reviewed the evidence she collected and immediately agreed that Daniel needed to be removed from her estate. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match. Victoria simply signed a few papers, made a few phone calls, and set everything in motion. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find a security team standing outside his room. They were polite but firm as they explained that he needed to pack his belongings and leave the property. Victoria didn't come to see him, didn't offer explanations, and didn't give him another chance to talk his way out. He was escorted out with the same cold professionalism he had tried to use on others. Daniel tried calling Victoria, but she didn't answer. He tried texting her, but she didn't respond. He even tried sending messages through staff, but no one wanted to get involved. In a matter of hours, he went from living in a mansion to standing on the street with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. He still believed he could fix things. He still believed Victoria would come around. He had no idea how final her decision really was. Victoria didn't expose Daniel publicly. She didn't need to humiliate him. Instead, she quietly spoke with her close circle, the same people who attended the dinner. She told them, in calm and measured words, exactly what Daniel had attempted to do. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't insult him. She simply shared the truth. And in their world, truth was enough. The wealthy families who once shook his hand now refused to even acknowledge him. Invitations stopped arriving. Business opportunities vanished before they could even begin. No one wanted to be associated with a man who had tried to worm his way into a widow's fortune through lies and manipulation. One by one, every door closed. Daniel moved back into a small, outdated apartment he could barely afford. The luxury he had chased slipped out of his hands faster than he could process. The people he once bragged to didn't return his calls. The lifestyle he thought he deserved was gone, leaving him with the same emptiness he once tried to escape by abandoning Emily. Victoria didn't celebrate his downfall. She didn't even think about him again. Her actions weren't revenge, they were protection. But the result was the same. Daniel lost everything he had wanted, while Emily kept everything he never valued. And now he had nothing left but the echo of his own choices. Emily settled into a quiet, steady rhythm after everything ended. She didn't rush to change her life or fill the empty spaces left behind. Instead, she built herself slowly, one choice at a time, in a way that felt honest to who she truly was. She moved into a small apartment near her school and kept working part-time, choosing independence over comfort. Victoria offered help more than once, but Emily gently refused each time. She wanted her future to be something she earned, not something handed to her because of a last name she had once stepped away from. Her relationship with her mother grew warmer, easier, and healthier. They talked often, shared meals when their schedules matched, and rebuilt the connection that had broken years ago. Victoria didn't try to lead Emily's life or shape her choices. She simply supported her from a distance, proud of the woman her daughter was becoming. For Emily, that alone was enough. As the months passed, Emily completed her degree with strong grades and a renewed confidence she hadn't felt in years. She found a job she loved, steady work that let her use her intelligence and compassion. People respected her, not because of her family or her background, but because of who she proved herself to be. She carried herself with quiet strength, no longer the woman who once shrank herself to keep someone else comfortable. In time, she met someone new, a man named Lucas, gentle and grounded. He didn't care about money, status, or appearances. He cared about her stories, her dreams, her fears, and her laughter. He loved her for her heart, not her inheritance. With him, she felt seen in a way she never experienced with Daniel. She felt safe, respected, and valued. Their relationship grew naturally, without pressure or performance, and for once love felt simple instead of painful. Daniel's life took a different turn. After being removed from Victoria's estate, he bounced around from job to job, never finding stability. Employers didn't trust him, friends drifted away, and the world he tried to climb into shut him out completely. He lived in a small apartment, barely furnished, with no one waiting for him at the end of the day. Each time he passed a fancy restaurant or saw a luxury car, he felt a sharp reminder of what he once thought he deserved. But the worst reminder came every night when he was alone. He didn't think about the lost wealth or the mansion or the opportunities he believed were his. He thought about Emily, how he had underestimated her, how he had spoken about her, how he had walked away thinking she was nothing. Now he knew the truth. She had everything he wanted, but she never needed any of it to define her worth. He tried to move on, but the regret stayed with him like a shadow. He saw her face in quiet moments, not as the girl he left behind, but as the woman she had become, strong, whole, and far beyond his reach. Emily never sought revenge. She never planned to ruin him or expose him. Her revenge was gentle, almost silent. It came from rebuilding herself into someone he could no longer touch or influence. She didn't need to watch him fall. She only needed to rise. And that alone showed him the truth he could never escape. She became everything he never believed she could be, while he became the man he never wanted to face.